the incident, the boat mishap last week. Could you give us a picture of what happened and then what your investigation has revealed so far?
Good morning. Yeah, I'm an engineer, Sayad Bama of the National Inland Waterways Authority. Normally, that accident happened because there was no any safety rules and regulations that was being abided by those on board. The National Inland Waterways make it compulsory for anybody on water to be on life jackets at the boarding jetty. And unfortunately, that boat that was involved in that accident was not a registered boat. So it was not a boat known to the National Inland Waterways Authority. The owner has been arrested by National Inland Waterways Authority. Investigation going on shows that the captain was actually not even on life jackets too. All the people on board were not on life jackets. And when that incident happened, because all of them, none of them could swim, so there was no way a lot of them could come out by themselves. There was quick intervention by rescue team. 7 people were rescued alive. But unfortunately, we lost about 4 to 5 of them. Investigation is still ongoing. It is not concluded yet. I cannot come and say this is what they have concluded on it. They are still ongoing. But we saw that it was the collision between 2 boats. And it was because the captain was distracted by videos, you know, all those filming and so on. But investigation is still ongoing.
7 people were rescued alive from the river. How come you still lost 4 at the end of the day? What happened from the point of being, rescued from the river to when they were confronted? What was the gap? What happened? Engineer Brahma, so my question to you is, as regards your response, that 7 people were rescued from the river after the boat mishap, but you eventually lost 4 from what you said. What happened from the point where they were rescued alive to the point where they were confirmed dead? Why were they not, able to make it out at the end of the day? Could you just fill us in on what happened? Brima. Let's go to engineer. Right now, let's go to Dr. Usman, the Deputy Director of Transport School.
When somebody who cannot swim and then found himself inside water, he will need breathing, he wouldn't know how to breathe, he will end up taking up water, and of course that can affect a lot of systems on the body. And most especially if there are no experts who can handle these victims effectively, or equipment needed to handle them, or the appropriate transportation system to take them to a hospital, definitely such trauma, which includes taking water and the fear of the water and the impact of, drowning, all these will add up if there is no proper care between the point of incidence and the hospital where they can be treated. Of course, it could be fatal.
Okay, Dr. Usman, I still want to stay with you. From what the engineer Brahma said, Lagos, that the boat operator was not given permission to operate. Now, let's look at the issue of enforcement now. Do you think that we have proper enforcement and regulation on our waterways in this country, going by the several incidences of casualties and deaths that have been recorded lately?
We should start from standardization first. we have to know what kind of standards of operations, what type of standard of boats, the jetties where these boats take off, and the very kind of operations we want to involve in on the waterways. Before we can now even design regulations that can fit and suit such operations. And having done that, of course, that's when actual enforcement starts. And if you look at it mostly in Nigeria today, most of our problems hinges around enforcing these standards, these regulations, these do and don'ts. There is a lot of flouting of the rules of the game as far as inland waterways transport is concerned. And when there are such misuse of the rules, of course, definitely mishaps could happen because, one, in terms of the standards, the jetties where such trip starts must be of good repute. The boats that are to load must be of standards and must be worthy of carrying out that trip. And then the passengers that are to board such boats must be well kitted in terms of use of safety kits and life jackets. Definitely, I agree very well that there are all the rules we need today to safeguard our waterways, but definitely their enforcement and the standardization of particularly operations. The boats are rickety too, many, particularly those that are in the outskirts. Within Lagos area, you can see one or two neat boats, well operated, but definitely this is not significant enough as far as the vast space we have to operate waterways transport in this country. Mind you, it's an important segment of our multimodal system which needs to contribute too, but definitely we've not been having that. And mostly it's because of the fear of incidents that go around that happens almost every other time. This is just the beginning of the season. As the rains go up, the waters go up, the need for travel sometimes by water also go up, and several security challenges are always there, of course. But if we can standardize, regulate, enforce these regulations, and ensure that there is compliance to it, and in fact sustain that compliance ratio to a large extent, that every person is aware of what he is embarking on, and particularly the level of compliance must be met to be understood, because there is a lot of need for enlightenment of both the operators and the users of inland waterway transport service in this country. Not just on a short trips, but even on a longer trips. We have long routes that could have been covered, commercially viable, substituting a lot of roads, haulage vehicles, and delivering goods in a very, in the cheapest form. Also, passengers can have it in a very nice, form by having trips that are both travels and enjoyment. Because if you look at the shape of our rivers, Niger and Benue, and how they go down to the lower Niger into the bifurcation, you will know that Nigeria is a beautiful country as far as waterways is concerned, because we have it in abundance. But are we taking real good advantage of it? Of course, no, because it is not contributing even up to 10% of what we expected from it. And
Thank you so much. Because when the Lagos area manager of NIWA was talking, she talked about that the particular boat was not registered. So what comes to my mind is, who's supposed to register the boat? Who's supposed to monitor? Who's supposed to ensure that passengers have life jackets when they have to embark on the travel? All these are questions, but just let's hear your perspective.
in marine industry, and most like any other industry, you carry out a risk assessment of any undertaking. Now, the Annam incident, from what we heard from our environmental expert, it appears they did not carry out proper risk assessment, and then to put in place systems that will mitigate against this incident. It is very unfortunate. I think it's a national malaise. I think that should help us to put that in perspective, because I don't understand why they will carry out such an undertaking without carrying out proper safety risk assessment. On the inland waterway system, it is sad that there is an institutional neglect of this very vital sector of the economy, and we could spend hours to discuss this. Gidado has raised some issues there, because with 28 states of this nation covered by water, it should have given us a priority. We should have put more attention into the inland waterway system. In your introduction, you said that Mr. President set up a commission or a committee to look at the safety issues. Again, that is part of the usurpation of the positions of some of our institutions, and that is what inland waterways is suffering. The laws have made it clear who is responsible for activities at sea up to the breakwater. And then there's another institution responsible for activities in the inland waterway. So I don't know what they will be asking NIMASA to be taking on this responsibility, because they have T's and then there are regulations all over. But let me make this point. Inland waterways has been the more or less the pariah organization of the maritime sector, with little attention to its development. The laws have made it so clear that the Inland Waterways Authority should actually be the leading organization for inland waterways, travel, activity, safety, you name it. But unfortunately, over the years, not only has it been neglected, other organizations have taken over their responsibility. We even hear Lagos State taking over some of their responsibility until recently that the Supreme Court ruled over it. So we cannot have that state to prevail and then we expect things to continue. Now, in terms of safety of life, I mean, I heard somebody saying that it's not increasing. With our population increasing to over 200 million, you expect the figures to rise, and then you expect us to have prepared for this. One of the issues of inland waterways travel that has been neglected over the years is the navigational safety. Unfortunately, on our waters, the navigational equipment are not there. The routes, it's like if you say somebody is driving and blindfolded, what do you expect to happen? Of course, he's going to crash. So, but the inland waterways, all you see the work we call work in progress, and I believe it calls for presidential intervention, because with 28 states covered by water, I mean, Gidado alluded to it, there are commercial activities involved, we have transport involved, so many issues. Our colonial masters saw the importance of the inland waterways, and they made it to sure that it contributed to the development of Nigeria. Why have we neglected inland waterways to the extent that people are dying? Let me add quickly. When the air, and I want to allude to the air industry, when planes were dropping like birds, like stones in the air, the president at that time, President Obasanjo, sure that he took presidential action to revive the issue. I think at this point now we need a presidential intervention, not only to salvage our inland waterways for the development of this economy, but to ensure safety of lives. You see different agents now jumping into the inland waterways. They are carrying out various activities to the neglect of the prime organization responsible to this. These are critical issues. Let the organization responsible carry out these functions. If there's a need for presidential intervention, so be it. And then let the organization that do not have any need to be there, let them move away from there. Let us empower the Inland Waterways Authority. If they are failing, we will ask them questions. But I think let's give other people time to react.
Thank you very much, Engineer Idori, for your contribution there. You have actually raised a lot of issues. The most potent one is the presidential intervention for us to be able to arrest all these accidents on our waterways. Let's come back to the studio where we have Godwin Adoga here. And we're talking about the issues of regulatory risk assessment, presidential. So my question would be, how can authorities be held accountable, you understand, for, all this negligence, for this, these lapses? What can be done?
Well, the answer to this question, would be rather vague. From the policy point, just like the doctor has actually mentioned, I think we have quite a number of agencies doing the same things and not even doing it effectively. It wouldn't be such a terrible thing if they were all collaborating and we could actually see tangible results. The truth of the matter is our waterways are not as developed as we would like them to be. The attention we are paying to this issue sadly is coming at a point where popular people have been affected. And this thing has been there. Of course, it is increasing because, of course, our population is increasing. And at the same time, we're rescued. It is also likely that they were still alive and that the people didn't know what to do. And there was no response, because there was probably no CPR, probably no, resuscitation. And so we can go to the policy, point where we talk about how can we make the agencies do their job. It actually has to come from the president traversing the water on barges. A barge is just I would say a piece of wood scrapped together. People are traversing the waters with barges, fishing on them. It's capsizing at a very alarming rate. And these things are not being reported. And that's the state of the waterway transport system. We're not even talking about speedboats because those are very expensive. Remember that this is a country where people still do fishing. And they're not fishing on trolleys. They're fishing on canoes. And the likelihood of canoes capsizing after a very strong wind is very high. And these things are happening. And that's also an accident. Those are things that we're not even talking about right now. So what are we talking about here? Enforcing the policies, that, my colleagues have actually talking about, I've talked about regulations, has to come from the table of the president. Because it is not just, something we can talk about from, the central popular places. We have to look at what is obtainable across Nigeria. What is obtainable as a practice across Nigeria, and how can charity at the point. And these are people who go out every day to do the same thing. So we are at a point where people rather take risks with their lives than do safety, because safety is too expensive.
People would rather take risk with their to perform its function. How well equipped is NEWA in ensuring safety on waterways in the country?
Good morning. And let me come back to Lagos. I'm the area manager in Lagos area office. And at every jetties, at least we have more than 72 jetties that are commercially operating in Lagos State. And at every jetty, we have what we call our water marshals. These water marshals are safety men. They are at every jetty checking your loading and your offloading. There is nobody. I think we have 99% compliance in Lagos State as of our inland waterways. They must wear life jackets. It's a norm. And 1% is just negligence. But 99% of people using waterways in Lagos State are always on life jackets, because our water marshals are at every jetty when you are boarding. And at every jetty you are boarding, we are doing what we call safety talks, safety campaigns. So, and buying of this life jacket is not by individual. It is not Marina and Ikorodu. We have a boat station on Tom Mainland Bridge, patrolling, knowing how and where they are moving, and who is speeding, over speeding. We have done several safety meetings, safety talks. At least once in every quarter, we do safety campaign. We have different local governments and we have zones, and we have the way we monitor them. Not even hold you when there is an incident. That is why you see our people checking the life jackets for their expiring dates, for their weights. Because most people, we do campaigns because we want to tell our people that if you are using life jackets, not just by using the life jackets has meaning. The weight of the life jacket must correspond with the weight of the people wearing it. And every life jacket has expiring dates. Those are what we check diligently in Lagos State. So we have more than 10 patrol boats always patrolling our waterways in Lagos by the National Inland Waterways Authority. At every jetties, we have our marshals. So there is no way you will board and will not be on life jackets. There is no way. And we had to put a quick intervention by bringing a 60-passenger ferry to do the running from Ikorodu to VI, pending when those people will repair their boats or bring other boats on board, because passengers will complain. If you take the boat out, what do you want us to use? We have issues of even passengers not allowing us to do our enforcement. There was a day passengers were practically beating newer staff just because we stopped boat from operating, because that boat is not seaworthy. They were practically beating my staff in Lagos just because they said they must go home and they don't have any other alternative. We had to write an emergency to the headquarters to provide a boat immediately. That's why they deployed one boat for us to use pending when we finish all our monitoring. So it's not that we are not doing things.
All right, Engineer Brima, from what you have said, you are saying that Lagos State is doing its best to regulate the waterways. But let me give you this report. This is, according to Adoga, there are so many cases of boat mishaps that have happened that have not been recorded, maybe because of the people involved or the areas where these things happen. But for those that were reported, there's a report that says that over 300 lives were lost to boat accidents across the country in 2023 alone, with Kwara and Anambra States recording the most deaths. Now, of course, on the list, we also have Lagos State, we have Kebbi, we have Niger, and if you remember, in January this year, we also had a boat mishap in Anambra and all of that, because I remember we had a conversation on, safety on waterways, even right here on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, all these issues, if you find out, if you carry out a report, most of them are due to overloading, faulty engines, lack of life jackets, the same issues that have been talked about. So, but let's move away from Lagos State now, and of course, move away from you, Engineer Brima. Let's get to Shehu Usman, Dr. Shehu Usman. I want you to, you're the Deputy Director of Transport School, Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology. I want you to tell us what the myths are concerning rivers, concerning our waterways, concerning drowning.
And I think Engineer Ilori has started that by mentioning the issue of the importance of navigation and navigability on the waterways. First of all, the water transportation is not just happening anyhow. Of course, it has a way too, just like the train has its track and the bus has its own route, and then so on the way for the waterway transport, of course, navigation is the key, and that is how these boats move from one point to the other. In Lagos, we don't have many issues relating to navigability, but along the rivers, Niger, Benue, tributaries, and several others, including coastal areas too, navigation is a very tedious thing, because in many cases, these routes are not being marked, and are not big. The accidents that happen around Niger and some parts of Taraba and all that is all related to navigation. In Niger particularly, boats can hit storms that were resulting from trees that were felled long ago, and when the water level goes up, it covers them up, and while they are moving on the water, they go and hit such. And also there are occasions whereby unknown areas that are relatively shallow could turn out to be deep, and areas that are deep could turn out to be shallow as a reason where there is overloading. In many cases, it results to accidents because these boats operate naturally according to the principles of flotation. And you cannot overload a boat and still expect it to move on a shallow water safely. So, but the essence of ensuring safety in this way is that there must be some level of surveillance. At every route, there should be an authority that is concerned to actually survey these routes, ensure that they are good for navigation at least once in a day, and then report back and advise all boat operators and users of their service as to how fair this water is, how good is the route, if there are impediments along the way, what are they, how to bypass them or how to remove them. This is very necessary. The waterways is not like the sea. The ocean is deep enough, vast enough, and has no minor encumbrances to navigation. But on the waterways or along the coastal areas, definitely a review of the condition of the routes, the channels, and the waterways through which these boats pass must always be updated, and that information can be used by the operators to know where to pass, where not to pass, when even to sail and when not to sail, because there are conditions that will actually require no sail at all. So these are some of the things that has to be considered over a time in order to ensure that the navigable routes are safe enough.
You didn't quite answer my question, but I thank you for that perspective that you have shared with us. I'm talking about the myths of our people, cultural beliefs, traditions, and all of that. If that is playing a role in the safety of our waterways, because of course when this incident happened last week, we heard so many things that happened. The point of from the point where they were even still safe to the point where this incident happened. So maybe Adoga would share with me the myths, share with us some of the myths of our people as regards traveling on the waterways, and then how this is impacting negatively.
Some of it is actually funny. I saw a video on social media where someone was sacrificing Fanta to the river gods, to provide safe passage.
And one of the survivors even said he had to throw some currency in the water for him to be able to float out.
People have their beliefs, and we cannot totally discredit them. Even the Vikings sailing, the British Channel, sacrificed animals to their gods to provide them safe passage. But what we need to do is to educate people, that river spirits, even though do not ultimately determine whether you survive or die. And we need to really teach people the proper way to behave on water, just the way we teach people the proper way to behave while driving. People know that you have to traffic gate when you're going that way.